I honestly don't remember having a conversation about the transition from using protection to not using protection. I told one family member and everyone else found out on Facebook and word just spread. It wouldn't have changed anything that he had done to me. So I decided, let me go test. This is months later. This is August now, 2011. And the results came back positive. Those 2 lines, it was probably the most devastating moment in life. I think there was just a complete numbness. I walked home, cried a river, isolated in the bedroom for a good week. You know, when it comes to support and family and HIV, I don't think we have mastered how this support should look like as families, especially as Black families. First and foremost, sex is absurd. We shouldn't be talking about sex. You can imagine we never really had the sex conversation. So now we must discuss HIV with you. Ooh, that's a lot. I think they themselves never knew how to support me. I was raised by my mother, and my mother was a single parent. I can't say my father was absent. He wasn't the father that I would have loved him to be. I am the last born of 13. My mother has 2 girls, so I have a sister. My mother raised us by herself until she passed. One very sad morning, she passed away in hospital very far away from me, from the family. I don't think anyone expects to lose a parent or looks forward to losing a parent or any loved one for that matter. Losing my mother at such a young age was life-changing. I think I was able to navigate through life with the lessons that she had instilled in me in the few years that I had experienced her. She was a very strong character, very grounded, very bougie, and she was a lover of life, a queen in her era. I think for the longest time I was lost. I moved from one relative to the other. I was a very rebellious teenager. And I think that rebelliousness was contributed by the trying to find who I am out of this person, because I had not experienced anyone else. My high school was pretty interesting. I broke a couple of rules, not that I'm proud of. I went to 6 high schools, by the way. 2 of them I didn't finish the year. These were all in different countries and different provinces. That's how bad your girl was. But I didn't hurt people. I was just rebellious. I was just self-controlling. You could never tell me what to do. I think I'm still the same even now. There's certain things that we consider dating, like kissing the boy at camp, running back to just so that you're not caught. I used to see him only when I was not at school. It was a weekend away or holidays, and I had met him in January. There came a time where it was a weekend home, and he had organized his PA to pick me up, drop me off at his place. But I think I had been away from town for so long that I wanted to see a friend of mine. So I linked up with a friend. I told his PA, listen, come get me at 5. So we went drinking at 5 when this lady called to say, hey, remember I have to pick you up. He was completely against alcohol. He was very religious, funny enough, except the one part where he lured young women, young girls. This lady says, I've come to fetch you. I'm like, nah, lady, give me another 2 hours. But I have to knock off. I said, nah, give me another hour or so. And eventually she knocked off and went home. And my friend now had to take me home to him with her then boyfriend. So we got there, parked outside, knocked, he didn't open. Knocked for a while, he didn't open. There's a pavement. I think because of how intoxicated I was and completely unbothered by the situation, I went and sat on the pavement there. He popped up outside from the upstairs window. I could see his lazy eye through it. He sort of said, oh, you've come to bring this one, this drunk. I don't want her in my house. And they apologized on my behalf. I couldn't have been bothered. I think I was tired as well of being this person that I'm not and being this woman in 2-piece outfits that I was way too young for. He eventually let me in and he said he wouldn't let me into bed. I must sleep on the couch. I completely didn't mind because this meant I would not be having sex with him, because this is something that I didn't really quite enjoy myself. That's where things went south. This was now June holidays. And he said, I think we must part ways. I don't remember what I said, but I was ready to pack my bags there and there. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna sleep on this couch. Tomorrow morning, I will leave. I had no plan whatsoever. I didn't know where I was gonna go next. I think in that moment, I was like, no, I need to free myself of this situation. Things really went south there. I honestly don't remember that having a conversation about the transition from using protection to not using protection. I don't think that conversation happened. I think I was told because I don't also remember having much say in anything during that period of his existence in my life, even when we had unprotected sex. I know I was uncomfortable about it. I did pick up that HIV and pregnancy were possible risks if one was exposed to unprotected sex. Growing up, I had lost and seen family go through being HIV positive and eventually losing their lives. It was a completely different time then. I can almost say I was bullied into it and never had a choice or a voice to opt out of not using a condom. It had been about 2 weeks of not seeing him. I started feeling ill. I think I had a bit of nausea and my period was nowhere to be seen. But I was also in denial about it because in any other situation, you always think it will never happen to me. I'm 17, pregnancy, what? No. If I'm pregnant, I'll definitely be proving these people right. Regardless of the fact that I had had unprotected sex, it was still far from me. So I think there was an element of denial there. So I find out I'm pregnant 2 weeks later. I did the test in a bathroom in a restaurant in town, I remember. And it came out 2 lines. This is now July. I sent him a message or called him, I don't remember, to say, hey, listen, I'm pregnant. His response was, go back to the men that you've been having sex with in the past 2 weeks. A very confusing time and response. I think it dawned upon him that he really could be the father. He rang me, I think the following day, to say, can we meet? And he's going to take me to an actual clinic hospital. And we did that test and we parted ways. He said he'd call me when the results came out. I think they were not immediate. He rang me the following day and said, let's go get the results. And the results came back and they said 6 weeks. I said, okay, so what must happen now? He said, what do you think must happen? So we agreed that I was going to terminate the pregnancy, travel to a certain hospital. He said I must find out how much it is. So I did my homework and he said, okay, he would drop off the money. So the last time I ever saw him was when he came to drop off that brown envelope that had the amount of money. He never sort of came back to ask if I had went through with it and if I was successful. He never followed up. And to be honest, I didn't want to terminate, but I had to. I ended up not terminating. So what happened was, just before the termination, my sister actually and I decided, let's go on a trip away and think. She was going through stuff, I was going through stuff. I remember when we got to the taxi rank, there was 1 seat left and they sort of added like a stool in between a taxi. And we had the time of our lives. Obviously, it was just a weekend of partying and meeting strangers and networking and having whatever conversations. A day or 2 after that, in preparation to proceed with the termination, I started getting cramps. These cramps were so bad, I could have sworn I was in labor. I said, I need to see a doctor, and I need to see a doctor now. And when I got there, the doctor did say that I was getting a miscarriage, and I was admitted there and there. I think after the miscarriage, I sort of was like good riddance. In as much as things were no longer the same at school and things were no longer the same in my life, I didn't have everything I needed at my disposal when I needed it. There was just so many emotions. I think I've always had someone in my corner. It may not be all 10 of you. I'm lucky enough to be that person to have someone. So I disclosed my HIV status on Facebook and said, my name is Zandile and I'm HIV positive. And I say this because I would like to change the next girl's life. I'm one for accountability. I'm one for not blaming others because I should have just been as responsible. My family found out about my status on Facebook. I told one family member and everyone else found out on Facebook and word just spread. I honestly couldn't have gained the strength to tell everyone one by one and deal with them, with their feelings individually, because of how a sob story and a pity story being HIV positive, living with HIV is. But 2 years later, he did try to get in contact with me. I think he sent me a message on Facebook and he sort of said, hey, I see you are in this city. Can we have coffee sometime? And remember, I had not spoken to him prior to that. I had not told him that I had tested positive. I refused. I think I refused to meet with him. Somewhere in the conversation, I said to him, oh, by the way, are you aware that you have done 1, 2, 3? But he completely denied the matter. Only to get a call from him, or a message 2 weeks later, saying that he knew he was just in denial. So this man knowingly infected me. In fact, I didn't even know what my rights were as a person who's been deliberately infected until I started having conversations like this. But I think even if I knew at the time, I wouldn't have gone with it because it wouldn't have changed anything. It would have probably saved a couple of other young women. It wouldn't have changed anything that he had done to me. I don't think I was the only victim. I can almost confidently say that there's quite a number of Zandiles. I have not seen him nor heard from him after I began the conversations about being infected with HIV. I do not know if he's still alive or not. He could be watching. I'm not interested in seeing him again either. It's a chapter that I chose to live and accept on my own. Living with HIV in 2024 and relationships, I think, is no different to living with HIV in 2012. Because in as much as people are educated, there's a certain level of ignorance. I'm a believer of disclosure. I have always made it a habit to put it on the table. But it has not been the easiest. I've experienced rejection on 100. I have gone on dates and told someone, and I've always chosen to tell someone face to face, just so you see the reaction. I've seen faces almost die down and become so blank. I guess I can understand. Some have given me hope in that moment to say this doesn't mean anything, but later changed and disappeared. Some have been accepting until they realized they didn't accept because they wanted to, and it was just out of pity. One person actually wore 2 condoms. It's a roller coaster. Lo and behold, there have been real, kind human beings. Those are one of my longest relationships where my HIV status wasn't an issue. Besides being a pretty girl, it's been quite a challenge. So my treatment process began in 2012. For me, it was trying to expose myself to other stories, other Zandiles and Tembis and Tembas. But it was just one of those comforting moments where you would realize that I'm not alone. I think my transition starting to taking treatment was not as difficult. Maybe the side effects, the only thing that I didn't ever experience was insomnia. That transition wasn't my most difficult time. Even though in between there's something called pill fatigue. This creeps up on you when you least expect it because you get tired of taking the treatment and knowing that should I not take this treatment, my life could possibly end. Zandile today is a content woman. Zandile today has understood that past experiences do not define her present. Zandile has managed to build very solid relationships in and out of the HIV space, to be a part of very interesting initiatives that involve the girl child. And I've been able to travel and see other countries and see the difficulties that these girls continue to face, understanding how much work Zandile has to put in to change the narrative of where we are when it comes to HIV prevention with our youth. I think for me to be able to do that, I have had to heal myself. I had to go through the journey of understanding that I'm no less a person than the next person who is not HIV positive. I'm happy. Zandile is in a very good space, embracing the days as they come and embracing the different experiences as they come. I sometimes forget about my status. Even when I do take my medication, sometimes I can't connect it to HIV. HIV is almost non-existent at this point. I think the continuous task that I have assigned myself is just to keep informing and keep disclosing and promoting disclosure, removing the fear of HIV. She is God's child, most importantly, and has found solace and peace in being a child of God and living my purpose of what God has planned for me.